is off. I don't know. We'll have to see. But we do have another match coming up, of course, and this is another one that could go in a very interesting direction. We have Seiko versus Pavel. Pavel, as we mentioned at the start of the show, if you weren't here, he needs to win the whole thing. So not only get out of his group, but then win tomorrow as well in these semi-finals into finals. If he wins the whole thing, he will get into Division A. If he doesn't, he won't, basically. But if there's anyone that can do it, it is Pavel. But he does have a tough opponent in his first match, I feel. Like Seiko, although we've not seen him this season, he is a extremely good Hearthstone player. And I believe his performance last year was also pretty good, right? You'll correct me
It
if I'm
was,
wrong here.
yeah. Most weeks it was very strong. He's a very good player. I know Admirable was just aghast over, and that's the wrong word. Admirable was incredibly impressed over and over again, and sort of mind blown, I guess, is what I was looking for. As some of the ways that he was playing certain decks that Admirable just wasn't really used to seeing, and Psycho has been in that position where. A few years ago, maybe 2 years ago, there was that sort of hushed tones of everyone saying, "Oh no, the actual best player in the world is this guy you haven't heard of called
Right.
Psycho," right? Like, so he really has been at that level, very often. But I think the big talking point here now is that we're back into dangerous territory for both of these two players because both of these players are in that purgatory zone where they don't know yet whether they're going to be in Division B and Division A. And actually, just purely based on like a percentage-based thing of how many things need to happen, these are the two most unlikely players to make it into Division A. Their fate is still very much in their own hands to be able to do that. Pavel needs to win, Psycho needs to make it to top two. But in terms of all the other caveats that can happen, they are less likely than Felkane and Boston, who are the other two players involved in the skirmish.
Completely true. And I am just going to quickly check something because I am aghast now that there is a
Oh, there's a rogue!
Yes, I'm like, I was listening mostly to you, Sottle, even though I know you were telling me things that I already know, for the viewers, of course.
Yep.
But really, I'm just like, right, where is this rogue list? Because has Pavel included secrets is question one.
Yes!
And if not, what is going on and why is it left up is my big question here because I just need to load this up because it wasn't playing nice for a second. We will get there. I
So
apologize.
for the few of you that don't get that joke, I'm sure you all know because you're all loyal Hearthstone Esports viewers, right? That's why you're here. There was a match at Seat Story where it was during, again, one of the periods where Pavel wasn't necessarily the most invested in the game, but he got invited to Seat Story, he showed up, and it was the last time that Rogue had secrets. So he was playing against a Rogue, he's in a soundproof booth, and his Rogue opponent plays a secret. And Pavel looks up and immediately just like wait, what? Rogue has secrets? Myself and Falcone are casting. We immediately just start joking, like, oh, like Pavel doesn't even know Rogue has secrets. Like, I bet he's going to try and pull out his phone and start Googling Rogue secrets now. And Pavel just turns and looks at us to the camera like this and is like, it was great. It was a glorious moment of Pavel just not having a clue what was going on.
Yeah, just an endless font of entertainment is Pavel. So we'll see what happens. And just, I've got the deck list now. It is a 2 of Secret Rogue / Galakrond, of course, list. And it looks
Beautiful.
It looks very solid. I guess the one questioning factor, which is where Pavel's going to come into his own, of course, is 2 Dragon's Horde in the list, which is not the most common card we see in there, but one that Pavel will no doubt be able to cash in on somehow. So that's very interesting that Rogue has been left up, and a fairly, at least in my opinion, solid Rogue list as well. It's not like Pavel's brought out Pirate Rogue, right? And it's just like, Cycle's like, well, of course I'm not banning that. He can play Pirate Rogue against me all day. He's bringing a good Rogue. So is there anything standing out from Psycho that looks like this is okay or expected?
No, because I'm now
like,
looking.
No, not
I'm
at
now
all.
I'm now looking at the Swiss results, and he played against Rogue 0 times in Swiss. So he never left this deck up while playing Swiss. So this doesn't seem to be part of his overall game plan. I don't know, Raven. I don't know what to tell you.
Sottle's been stumped by the enigma that is Pavel as well, somehow just being allowed. Is this why Pavel's been winning? Is he just been playing Rogue regardless of what happens and just like, I'm going to queue this. It'll be fine, I'm Pavel. So we'll see what happens here because I imagine if Pavel's having Rogue open, that deck is getting played this match because you would have to be truly crazy not to lock it in when you have maybe not the best other options going from as well. So interesting to see from these players and see how it affects Psycho, because if Psycho takes a loss here, you do have to just straight away wind back to, well, did Rogue get a win? If so, did you really have to play against Rogue in this series? Strange.
Mm-hmm. It is indeed, but leaving Rogue to one side for now. Outside of that, Shaman and Paladin as expected, and then Druids on both sides as well as expected. And then it's the Mage that is remaining for Seiko, which is another deck that's had some questions about it. It's another deck that does seem to get a bit weaker when you boil the metagame down to this format, because it can struggle to consistently control the board states of even like Totem Shamans and Evolve Shamans that can turn such small minions into such big ones so quickly that, you know, Reno the Relicologist and Blizzard and things like that, they're not clears. Like, they're stalling tactics at best, and then that still leaves the Shaman with a big board to leverage moving forward. Not to mention when the Hunters come into the fray as the fourth deck on the other side, like obviously that is usually a pretty strong matchup against the Mage as well. So Mage is another deck that has seemed to have suffered in this format. Seems a little bit weaker here than it was in week 1 and 2.
Yeah, and funnily enough, we were talking a little bit earlier about how Europe is a little bit different from Asia Pacific in that the Paladins and Shamans are looking a little bit more widespread in terms of not only just Murloc Highlander and then some different styles of Shaman. Well, Pavel's bringing Murloc Paladin and Totem Shaman. So he's definitely taken the Asia Pacific approach. It seems to be working, but let's get into it without further ado. Seiko on the top on the Druid. Pavel on this Totem Shaman. And Sol, that looks like a fairly solid opening hand to me for Pavel.
It does indeed. Seiko already, though, just with the Moonfire, he can just skip the Battle Mage, just let it be a minion. It doesn't say Totem on it, so you don't care, so just leave it there. And then Moonfire Hero Power the Evil Totem, and then question mark for this deck, right? So, you know, okay, that helps. That helps enormously. This is actually now a pretty strong hand from Pavel.
And honestly, I don't think it's too deep a suggestion to say that Pavel would go Evil Totem, Totemic Might together, especially with that reflection in hand, of course.
Yeah, you absolutely do it.
Right,
yeah,
people aren't probably used to seeing it and think, well, Totemic Might on one totem? Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's stupid. But
Yes.
it's the setup for Totemic Reflection. And then
Exactly.
after that happens, you are playing a game of Hearthstone.
If you protect that one totem to be able to duplicate it a few times, well, then it's like you cast Totemic Might on 3 or 4 totems
Yes,
further
there
down
you
the
go.
line, right?
And also, just this Battle Mage doing a great job of protecting it even further, right? We saw Seiko get the Eagle out, the Battle Mage can just sacrifice itself to protect the totem, and suddenly, Seiko, can you do 4 damage? That was not a Bog Beam, so you cannot.
Oh, it's happening. It's actually happening. This could just be one of those unbeatable games for Totem Shaman. And they do exist, and I think this is why people have a lot more faith in the deck than I do, because, you know, you can take the philosophy of, like, well, you know, whatever Shaman deck I'm going to bring is going to be kind of bad. I'm just going to bring the one that, like, immediately wins the game sometimes.
Can't really argue with that.
You can, and I will, Raven.
Is this a coin lightning bolt? I like it. Protect the health on the totems, and also his hand cost is quite small right now, so the overload isn't exactly going to hinder him too much.
Surge just to push 2 damage now? Kind of questionable. Because obviously he can, you know, do more stuff next turn and still play the Surge for 0 mana and the totems end up the same size, but, you know, he might get another totem on the board by that time.
Surging Tempest. Not too bad based on it just having 3 health. There are some AoE buffs in the deck as well. So it means that if this goes up to 4, it is a bit more sturdy. I'm surprised Pavel didn't just lock in that Ethereal Lackey just to see what he got in terms of, you know, maybe more totem buffs, maybe Bloodlust to set up for.
Yeah, he didn't have the 3 immediately available this turn, the 3 mana to be able to play another Totemic Reflection, which would have probably been the nuts, so I can potentially understand not going for it, just going for the more powerful lackeys on board.
Well, there's 15 damage on board, but there is a Starfall and a Moonfire available.
There is, for sure.
So
This bees that he just drew, though, oh, we didn't even talk about it. This would have Giga ended the game if he just drew it on turn 3 against the Evil Totem as a 0/4. Like, actually just game over.
Not that Pavel could have really done anything about it. Can't really play around it. I think you just go and then hope it sticks. But yes, I'm not sure how many bees Seiko is running. I want to take I'll take an estimate at 2. But I'll have to double check.
This deck is just so feast or famine. Like, when you are winning, you win by so much, it's absurd.
Oh, he is only running 1 bees as well, so... Okay. Oh, but he's running a swipe in this list.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
I guess you just pick Soul?
Seems fine. Torrent actually seems okay. Yeah, I don't hate this, actually, because you're going to Totemic Reflection this turn, and then next turn could be your opponent's, big 7-drop minion turn, which makes Torrent just a very effective card against that.
Yeah, yeah, you know what? I didn't... I'm still learning, guys, I'm sorry. It did not hit the process of my brain that these totems, or 2 of them, would have 8 health. So, yes, maybe they're not going to die next turn. They have 8 health. It just didn't work.
Once you start with this deck, you don't lose. It's just actually impossible to get started.
And, wow. No damage lackeys, which is pretty funny, actually. It's just all... Do you want more little minions knocking around? Here, have all these faces lackeys. Well, that's 2 6/8s on the board, isn't it?
It is, yes. Well identified.
It's about as deep as the analysis goes for this point in the game. How are you supposed to fight back? So you can either kill 2 of them, kill 1 of them off. He does lose his minions if he does that. So I actually realised this from Seiko. It's the best chance he's got. Trade away, leave as many taunts in the...
Yeah. He's just dead to everything, but it is the best plan he had. Just... This is what I mean. Like, when you start winning with this deck, it looks like the most powerful deck in the history of Hearthstone. Like, how can anything possibly compete with that? The answer is they just kill your first totem, and then you're just floundering. You're just flapping around out of water like a drowning fish.
I wondered where you were going to go with that. I didn't know whether that was going to get very intricate or not. But yes, that was a crazy game, and I guess the thing for me that is keeping that deck in check, even though it's not even played at high tier at all, is that the lack of consistent card draw. If you don't do that to Evil Totem or a Mana Tide, yes, you might have a couple of big things, but you have that in your hero power most of the time by turn 4 or 5, right? It's not like Pavel's hand grew big naturally. It was all down to them being exactly Evil Totems.
Yeah, and you say if you don't do that to a Mana Tide or an Evil Totem, it's so hard to do that to a Mana Tide or an Evil Totem because Pavel had the nuts. He had the cheapest totem and he had the buff for it to give it the most health. There's still Bogbeam Moonfire, Wrath Moonfire, Wrath Coin Hero Power if he's on coin, Bees, which is just an absolute delete if Bees happens. Like, the game is over. There's so many answers just to deal with that first totem. So then you have to go again. You have to present like a Mana Tide totem after that to put them back in the same spot again. Right. You have to do that over and over and over until eventually they lose the ability to deal with your totems. And that is if they're not just playing minions. Because if they just play minions, that's a free removal spell for your totem every single turn of the game. So it's so rare that games like that actually happen. That's why I just really don't think that deck is very effective. But it's the Pavelist of all Pavel things to just bring that deck. First game out of the gate, absolute nuts. Looks like the best deck ever. Looks like the best player ever. Pavel, one absolute lord you are.
Yeah, the saga of Pavel continues. We're going to go to a quick break while we set up the next game and maybe give Seiko just a minute to recover from what that was in game number 1. We'll be right back. It's Seiko versus Pavel continuing here. As Pavel just moonwalks his way to a 1-0 lead with that totem shaman. Pretty one-sided there. Not much Seiko could have done about it, but he did try. And is Pavel just going to 3-0 this series and 3-0 his way to victory today and tomorrow? We're going to find out. He does have Paladin and Druid left, but most importantly, Sottle, he has Rogue left, which is not only just a solid deck, one of the best classes in the game right now. Maybe just under, probably joint with the Demon Hunter, and maybe Warrior's just that little bit up there based on general perception. But still, having Rogue up at a match like this must be feeling great for Pavel.
I'm honestly speechless that there's a Rogue in this series. I just honestly don't know how to break it down. I was expecting to click on the Swiss spreadsheet that we have from Lorinda and then see that Seiko had played a couple of series against Rogue before, and then, I can look through his deck list and figure out what the plan is, based on is he doing this or that to deal with Rogue. However you would end up doing that, I'm not entirely sure, but maybe I could work it out by looking at some deck lists. But it's unique. He hasn't done this before. He is only now doing this for the first time against Pavel. So we're saying that he didn't play against Pavel specifically in Swiss. So it's not like he's had this exact matchup and done something different before, but it's still just incredibly surprising.
Oh, we are going to see Pavel on his Druid and Seiko on the Mage on the top. So, bit of a weird matchup, this one. I never really know where I sit in terms of who feels favoured and who doesn't. I do feel like this one is just extremely close.
Yeah, agree. I do like being the Druid in this matchup, personally. I don't know how much of that is my dislike for Mage and the fact that I find it like quite a fun puzzle from the Druid side, just figuring out how to either stretch out resources or just kind of bomb chain until they run out of stuff. Right. Kind of a different route that you have to take through each different matchup. But I would give a slight edge to the Druid personally.
Just checking out the Mage list, we can see the Flame Ward. It's not been drawn here. It's Ice Barrier from the Ancient Mysteries, but Flame Ward is in the deck for Seiko. So we've been seeing a lot of mages recently only running Ice Barrier in their Highlander. But Seiko, again, another nod to the expected meta, I think, is including the Flame Ward in his list, as well as a Waste Warden in there as well. Doomsayer is kind of normal. That's pretty much it. But honestly, I think Mage is, in terms of removal in an AoE fashion, is well situated regardless to deal with these kind of decks.
For sure. I think that slight consensus towards cutting the Flame Ward has contributed a little bit to the stats where you look at Druid coming out ahead in this matchup, because it is obviously quite an effective card in the matchup. It's not the be-all end-all, because it's a very reactive card. It's not immediate. They make a board, you play a Flame Ward, and then they have every opportunity to play Gift of the Wild or Double Power of the Wild or whatever else it is to buff up the health and still to be able to survive through that.
Or even Soul of the Forest, just to say, okay, well you get that round. I've still got a full board afterwards.
Yeah. Tempo Doomsayer from Seiko, just to block out that Glowfly Swarm. No big surprise. Pretty common play in the matchup.
Let me just give a quick check. Dragoncaster live, no box, so yeah, probably not going to be coming down. Good follow-up though, just having an awkward taunt in the way, although it doesn't exactly slay many Treants here, or Glowflies I guess. It is just a big taunt to punch through, and Seiko has Reno as a follow-up, so looking pretty good so far. Even this rolling Fireball.
Yeah, Reno doesn't deal with much more than the Rolling Fireball does, and Rolling Fireball does it kind of consistently and on your terms and always the same way.
Reno's a minion though.
That is also true, yeah.
And I like minions, so I do like the Reno here, because I don't think Seiko doesn't need to kill every single minion right now, because he's on 27, he's got a massive taunt in the way, right? So I think I like this overall, just having the 4/6 there.
Well, the reason I think this was better, and I think Seiko set this up very deliberately, the reason why this minion came down even as a 1/8, is you can see what happens when you play Reno Jackson against 7 Glowflies, is you leave a couple or 3 1-health minions around, like left on the board, depending on what happens. So then at least having the 1/8, you're able to just trade through that very effectively. Because otherwise you could actually still leave a good chunk of board state for your opponent, and they just have a nice board to just rebuild on the next turn. But the addition of that 1 extra attack makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting as well to just watch the deliberation between how Seiko approaches the next couple of turns, because his Dragoncaster is active because of the Malagos. But the problem is, as soon... oh, I guess he'll be fine, actually. Yeah, I'm just wondering when he wants to pull the trigger on this Dragoncaster, when he values a 4/4, along with a medium-level spell, such as a Rolling Fireball, instead of saying, I'm going to Dragoncaster out, you know, Power of Creation or a Yogg Box or something like that.
Why can't I hold all these innovates? Oh yeah? Gonna burn your next card to keep an innovate? No, I don't think so. Still missing Soul of the Forest, still missing some of the power minions. I think there's just too many important things left in the deck to be able to take a burn there.
Now, even subconsciously, has Seiko been watching Pino's stream much?
Ready for a show?
And here we go!
First. Interesting.
Oh, Stormhammer.
Whoa!
Oh. What?
Okay, so that happened. Now we can get back to Hearthstone.
Can we? I don't think I'll ever feel the same about Hearthstone after seeing that box. Not only was it insane on the board, it also discarded, like, what, 3 legendaries or something? He lost his Zephrys, his Tiamat, and his Kalagos.
Yeah.
And I still feel like that was good for Seiko, right? Like, it's still fantastic.
I think he could have cast like Void Contract like 6 times and blew up his entire deck, and he still would have won the game with this board that he made off that box. He's pretty chilling right now.
Pavel, though, not losing his cool, just doing his best to set up and deal with as much of this board as possible. Sanctuary coming down. It's a little bit frustrating that there's now a 3/6 on the board for him to deal with too.
Yep. Does only have 5 mana available this turn. Oh, woe is Seiko. Thanks to the overload. Honestly, Stormhammer in Highlander Mage, pretty good card.
Mm. Yeah, this might be a little bit much, even if Pavel goes nuts here, because even just still with the 3 taunts, not only is it going to be hard for Pavel to actually kill Seiko through all of this, it's going to be hard for Pavel not to be killed through all of this as well, because Seiko is going pretty aggressive here. These minions do a lot of damage, and there's Frostbolt, there's Malagos, there's even, to a certain extent, the Explosive Trap.
He even, I mean, this rabbit hole goes so deep, Raven. He has Repentance as his random Paladin secret. The only minions that Pavel plays are huge minions that he really wants to survive, or at least be very difficult for his opponent to deal with, or make a huge taunt out of when he's under pressure. Well, they've all got 1 health now. He's got a Flame Ward still to play with. The Hunter secret that he got generated was Explosive Trap, which is literally the best one he could possibly get in this matchup. Like, that box was just the nuts. Just the nuts. That's all that happened.
I was just looking at the pig and the fresh scent times 2. I mean, that's just a scary pig as well, if you want to play that down. But yes, it was... I think we can say pretty fairly now, each player's had a game. So so now we can maybe go back to some of our regularly planned Hearthstone content and not what is happening at this moment in time type of content here. As Seiko got the insane box, Pavel got the insane opening with the Shaman. Is the insanity going to continue? We're going to find out, but either way, I think both players can be okay with the outcome now as a 1 apiece to go to 1-1.
I genuinely, like, you know, jokes aside, I do like the way that Seiko played the turn, though, because he kind of threw away the coin first, which obviously opens up more space in his hand, because obviously one of the things Puzzle Box does quite regularly is draw you cards and generate cards, like we saw from Hunter's Pack. So by throwing the coin away first there, he gave himself more space for that kind of value to be generated. He could have like preemptively frostbolted or something as well, but you don't know what your frostbolt target wants to be after until you see the box get cast. So, I think all of the things that were in Seiko's control, he actually handled very nicely there. But yeah, the box was just alarmingly good from Seiko that turn.
Yeah, the fact that it discarded arguably 3 of the best cards in the deck, and it was still good, is ridiculous in itself. But as I said, both players had a very one-sided, very strong game for themselves each, which has led us to this 1-1 scenario. Is it going to continue? I don't know if I can take much more of this, honestly, Sol. We're only in match 2 of the day.
I was going to say, a long way to go yet, Raven. Don't be spending all your energy just yet.
Although we should be used to casting weird Pavel matches, right? Like,
I know,
this should be something
right.
we should be more than used to right now.
We're going to go, it looks like, into a Druid mirror now. Pavel's sticking on that Druid. Seiko going back to the Druid that was defeated so resoundingly by the Totem Shaman. Raven, I believe you have much better access to the deck list than I do right now. Starfall check in these lists, if you can, please.
We're going to Starfall check. 1 for Seiko, which we did see a little bit earlier. And I believe 2 for Mr. Pavel.
Okay.
Bear in mind, though, not quite to the same level, but Seiko is running that 1 swipe as well. So maybe swipe with a Moonfire or something can do not quite the same job as something. And that looked like it hurt.
Oh, it did. It hurt everyone, apart from Pavel fans and Pavel himself.
Like Pavel just let off one of his patented smug smiles there as he just saw the discard, but both players kind of going toe-to-toe for some discards there.
Yeah, Seiko lost the Mount Seller on top of that as well, though, so pretty unpleasant. Worth noting as well that I think these guys are actually pretty good friends and practice partners. And actually, last year when we spoke to Pavel, he credited Seiko as being the one who motivated him and really got him back invested in the game and playing well again, because they started reviewing each Grandmaster series after it happened and really prepping together and so on. So I'm sure there is a lot of bittersweet feelings here, knowing that they are kind of directly competing against each other for those 1 or 2 remaining Division A spots.
I will say, even though the discards feel bad, a lot of these mirrors do come down to not needing those 7 drops in the game, as a lot of it is centered around the Glowfly turns, right? The turns like 5, well, the mana turns of 5, 6, and 7, I guess.
Yeah. Also, when both players are playing Starfall, though, then the game can resolve down to the point where the big 7-drop bombs do come into play. But that was Seiko's 1 Starfall, right?
Yes.
So this second Glowfly is going to be a pretty big issue. Yeah. Seiko with a little shake of the head. That's about as animated as it gets from him, but that tells the story.
He does have the Iron Bark and a Bog Beam to help maybe fight back with this board, but the problem is the second your opponent drops 1 buff, AoE buff I mean, then you're in huge trouble.
Yeah.
Although
Not to mention he only got 6. Not to mention he only got 6 flies to begin with as well. So he's already kind of behind on the trades.
If the trades come out and it's only Power of the Wild, like I said, Seiko is running a swipe though, so it could be the saving grace off the top.
That's fair.
Because Pavel doesn't actually he hasn't ramped this game. So it's not like he's going to drop a Gift of the Wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
So although Seiko's not looking fantastic, he's by no means out yet. He just needs a couple of very good card draws here.
Time waits for no one.
Yeah, Pavel does have Power of the Wild and Soul of the Forest available, though.
That is true.
But it's a little bit worse than Seiko might be hoping for. He does certainly have top deck outs against small punish here, but I think the size of the punish is going to come out from Pavel. It's going to put him in a world of hurt.
He still has Crystal Power as well, so he doesn't even have to directly trade all of this, does he?
Yeah, I wonder whether we're going to see Innovate Crystal or just hold all that stuff for the exotic Mount Seller. I expect we'll see it just because this is a game-winning board already, so you can just kind of ride this to the bank and forget about your Mount Seller.
And he's also a couple of turns away. He's only going into 7 mana next turn, so it's not like he can go Mount Seller, Crystal, Crystal, and other things in the same turn, right? It's going to be a little bit slow.
I mean, absolutely. He can go Mount Seller, Bog Beam, Iron Bark, Innovate, Crystal Power next turn if he somehow didn't have a board and kept those cards.
Oh, yeah, sure, because he would have kept the Innovate, wouldn't he? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it would have been a huge turn, but the point is he just doesn't need a huge turn because he has a huge board.
It's like, it's got Dr. Wild Growth right now in hand, I guess, with a whole lot of nothing going on. He can use the Wild Growth.
Dr. Wild Growth! That's what you went with. Okay. Alright, I like it. It's fine.
Can cycle the Wild Growth, but one, that's a lot of mana, and two, he's already dead. He just probably doesn't even feel it yet.
Oh, he feels it, Raven. He's definitely feeling very dead right now.
I can see.
Yep,
There we go.
That's exactly how dead he feels.
Quick can see there from Seiko, the first, you can see though, some of the players with the tech cards have more game. The first Starfall could have kept Seiko in the game and maybe won it him, apart from Pavel having that second Glowfly ready. But as we mentioned at the start of the day, tech cards are the big question mark this weekend, and I feel are really separating the players, because there are some players who haven't brought any Starfalls, and they're all leaving Druid up, so they can play mirrors. And it comes down to that, basically, if you run none. So it is, I do think that although obviously it didn't look great for Seiko there, he has a good build. It's just if your opponent has 2 waves and you don't have 2 removals, that's what happens in the mirror.
Pretty much, yeah. I think the Druid Mirror, you know, when you sort of go back to the normal decks of what we were sort of seeing in week 1 and week 2, I think the Druid Mirror is one of the most turbulent matchups that you can possibly see. Like, super, super swingy, super explosive, very, like, feast or famine in terms of one player will have it and one player won't a lot of the time. And if both players have it, the one who had it first is probably just going to be miles ahead a lot of the time. So a really, really difficult matchup to, you know, kind of think your way out of in a lot of spots. And I don't think there was just nothing doing for Seiko there. Like he did everything he possibly could to try and combat what Pavel had, but just had the goods.
Yeah, and the important thing as well is that Seiko was the one that ramped, but he discarded the things he wants to ramp into, which was a little bit unfortunate as well, right? He couldn't go, suddenly 2 Innovates and a Mount Seller look pretty good sometimes, right? But he just didn't have the Mount Seller available, didn't have KT. So it was a little bit unfortunate the way it shook out there. But we do have more games coming up. And Pavel still has not played this Rogue. Is he going to joke on us all here and lock in Paladin and be like, ha, don't even need that class?
It's literally what I was just thinking. Like, what if the first series we see where Rogue gets left up, it ends up being the deck that's not being played? If that happens, there must be something going on, right? Where, like, Seiko's identified something and then Pavel also sees that something, and, like, maybe the Rogue is just weak here across the board. I'm not really sure. Like, I can understand that maybe Rogue would struggle a little bit against the same, like, board flood aggressive matchups, the Shaman and the Paladin. Like, it would succumb a little bit to the same theory as the Druid does, where it can't really handle a board spreading that wide that early a lot of the time. I could definitely get down with that, but I think it's just too solid and consistent a class overall to be left up in this format.
Yeah, there's the how good just the deck / class is of Rogue right now, but also Seiko's Paladin is Highlander. So although, you know, we've seen this style of Paladin just kill someone on turn 6 or 7 before, it's in a much more, I feel, manageable chunks for Rogue specifically to deal with, because they have some of the tempo tools, they have the secret, they have some, you know, the backstab, etc. So there are ways that Rogue can fight back versus that kind of deck instead of, you know, Face Hunter, for example, or even the Totem Shaman, where the health pools are so much higher on average. So yeah, this does confuse me, but what won't confuse me if Pavel just locks in Paladin, because I feel like that's just what he's feeling right now. He's just saying, Rogue, who needs it? I'll play the fair format. Seiko does have an uphill climb, though, because even if Seiko takes a win, Pavel can choose Rogue again if he wants to, right? So even if Pavel locks in Rogue now and loses, he could just lock it in again. And 2 goes at it with Rogue in this meta feels pretty good.
Yeah, that is an important point that we don't think we've covered yet today, which is you are not like locked into a deck once you queue it once. Obviously, once you win with it, you've won with it and it's out of the series. But Pavel could play, out of his 2 remaining decks, he could play Rogue one game, lose with it, play Paladin the other one if he really wanted to. That's perfectly fine. All the decks that haven't won are available to you at any point in the series. It's Paladin Raven.
I knew it! I knew it!
Oh, yes! This is the best series of Hearthstone that ever happened. Like, just forget about it. Hunter Ace vs Viper World Finals? Nah.
I'm trying to think now. Is what is happening me being a prophet? Or do I just know Pavel that well? I'm not sure what's more likely right now, but Pavel has a ton of weapons in his hand. So he is playing the Murloc Paladin, so it is not the Highlander list that we were talking about that Seiko has. And these weapons, although it looks pretty slow, it's going to be okay. It's going to give him a lot of stuff going forward with these rods.
Yeah, it's a ton of value and kind of acceptable tempo as well. Like, 3-mana Fiery War Axe is just kind of where the power curve is at for weapons now, right? Like, this is just kind of an acceptable card to be swinging with. So it's reasonable tempo. But just in terms of just resource generation and just being able to keep going for a significant amount of time, it's pretty huge. Because if there's one thing that you can force Evolve Shaman to do, it's gas out. Like, sometimes they do just struggle if you're able to deal with 1 or 2 waves of threats that they present.
Yeah, and we can see that already, right? Stormforged Axe, good value in terms of just the amount of swings you get, and probably gets a couple of kills on some Murlocs. But outside of that, the Krunks is going to be very late to this party, and this Mutate has to do some incredible work. Even the Orc Merchant, which we both love, might not get tons of value because, okay, it can kill a 1 health Murloc. Well, Pavel doesn't care, he's got a million Murlocs. It's a job for killing 1.
Not anymore it can't, because Pavel can just drop Cold Lights here on this entire board to protect it from all of these trades. And now the snowball is very much in effect for Pavel, because every turn these Murlocs go unanswered, they are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, as is the way.
I was just going to say, it's not like Seiko has 3 trades this turn, because he has to mutate. He has to mutate one of those hairs. That's why you see the attack in there, the quick mutate, and we'll see what he makes of this turn. Does have the Stormforged Axe and the 2 Orc Merchants. But the worst part is, he's spending all of this to more or less kill a 1-drop.
Yep.
Which is spending his whole Sun Girl.
He's spending his whole hand to still be behind on board. Pretty grim.
And he has nothing for next turn as of this moment in time. Obviously he has 1 card draw, but the Krunks is not playable. Pavel, just going to War Leader all the way home, isn't he?
Well, he's not going to have that much board left.
Oh, sorry, not right now, but the generation from the Rod plus the cheap Murlocs, I feel like he has the ability to just build a board, and then once he gets to 6 mana potentially, just go War Leader game.
Yeah. Because, yeah, he can now actually use the Orc Merchant for kind of its intended purpose, which I really was not doing much at all in testing, actually rushing minions with it. I was much more commonly using it to snipe my opponent with 1 damage.
Why are these Murlocs able to just value trade the board away?
I know. Disgusting, isn't it? Oh! Underbelly Angler with double 1-drop Murloc in hand. Although, yeah, spending 1 of them is fine here, because next turn you're going to go Angler, swing the weapon, Furious Felfin, Toxfin, right?
Yep. And also, it's a Reborn Murloc, so the fact that it sticks is very nice for following turn. If he needs to pivot and maybe go War Leader instead for a trade from an evolved target. And look at that, Galakrond! As he's about to go into his Krug's turn. That is a 6-mana 6/6 for now.
Okay, never mind. Shielded Murglebot draw means that we are skipping the Felfin this turn.
Looks a little bit fishy that turn because he did give poison to a minion, then have to swing the weapon into a 0/2 totem that he could have killed off with the Reborn, but the Reborn does just die to the axe anyway, whereas the shielded Murloc bot, as you like to call it, has Divine Shields. Much more difficult to get rid of. Seiko.
Shielded Murglebot, Raven.
Murglebot, sorry.
Get it right.
Come on.
Although in honor of Dan and TJ last night, I will give it 1. McGurgle. I know you don't watch much Americas, but it was a thing. They just kept saying it over and over and over again, and it was funny because it was TJ. You get the idea.
Sounds like the overall quality of the Americas broadcast doesn't
Yeah.
does it?
Exactly.
We're there bringing deep analysis and some humour. They're just saying McGurgle for
Yup.
4 hours a day.
No, that
Sounds
was it.
exactly right.
That was the broadcast. You nailed it.
It's good to know with everything that's going on in the world, some things never change. Galakrond finally going to come down for a whopping two twos of rush to try and fight back on this board, but I think Pavel is feeling it right now. It's not often you see a Murloc Paladin go, full board on turn 6 and a full hand.
Yeah, he is, but unless he has actual direct lethal this turn, it's not over, because, you know, this Galakrond, sure, the rushes were nice, but the real reason why Galakrond came down is because he needs Kronks to be able to come back into this game. And Kronks actually does really help him come back into this game here. So currently, Pavel has, 14 on board, plus 8 from the War Leaders, 22, plus 4 from the Oracle.
He's 3 off, right?
26.
The problem, he can go to 27, I counted. The problem he has is he has 4 Murlocs.
He has double War Leader. He has double War Leader, it's lethal.
Wait, what? Oh, I didn't even see the second War Leader in hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it in my mind that he had 2 War Leaders. 1 on board, 1 in hand. I didn't even see the third one. Of course that's lethal. I sound silly. If there was just the 1 War Leader to play, I was going to say, he does have only 4 minions on the board, so all the buffs would have basically added up to the same with the weapon. But Pavel takes it. Doesn't even need Rogue Sol. It's just Pavel in it.
Just Pavel. Just Pavel. What else is there to add at this point? Like, that was the most Pavel series that has ever Paveled. It was just incredible to see. Obviously, after having such a long break from seeing Pavel on camera, I think it's very refreshing to see him back, because I think, you know, as I mentioned at the closer broadcast yesterday, I think he's very good for the game. I think he's massively entertaining. I also think he's an incredibly good player. But honestly, his priorities just kind of dip in and out of Hearthstone right now. And sometimes he's not fully focused and he's a little bit behind. Sometimes he is, and he's an absolute killer. I can just only hope that if he, you know, does cash out this week with the Division A placement from winning the week, that we get to see old Pavel in Division A really making a good run at it, and, you know, shooting for that repeat world champion, which is still kind of the one thing we're missing in Hearthstone at this point.
And that's the thing, right? And one thing I want to point out for any viewers who are a bit more new to Hearthstone and maybe didn't either watch too much last year or even just pay attention to Pavel too much last year. But if there's someone you want to go back and watch some old matches of, just look at any of Pavel's tournament matches, right? Because 1, something always happens, right? Something weird always happens. But 2, he is a good player and definitely has his own ideas on the game. So he has a very unique approach as well. And when you put all that together and add in just the crazy person he is to, say, hang out with, as we've had plenty of time with him in person ourselves, Sol, you create one fantastic Hearthstone player. So I'm excited that he won. Unfortunately for Seiko there, bit of a rough series overall, but congratulations to Pavel. It is happening. We're going to go to a break while we start the next match. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Hearthstone Grandmasters.